Tonight, one of the most controversial voices in Hollywood is going to pull the cover back and expose what's really happening behind the scenes and how we can make a difference. Welcome to Your Encounter Today. I'm Bishop Alan DiDio. Our guest is the star of shows like Hercules, Andromeda, and movies like Let There Be Light and God's Not Dead, and he has a brand new end-time movie coming out, Left Behind, The Rise of the Antichrist. Kevin Sorbo is joining us, and I want to hear from you. What's some of the favorite work that you've seen him do, that you've enjoyed? Write it down in the comments, whether it's TV shows or movies. We want to hear from all of our Encounter Today audience, and I believe this interview is going to be inspiring. As you hear his story, you're going to be challenged to make an impact in this culture and see revival to this nation. Let's jump into this interview with Kevin Sorbo. Kevin Sorbo, it is so good to have you on Encounter Today, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Well, I appreciate your time. I mean, this is great for me as well. Come on.
Well, I was telling you, you're like the hardest working man, not just in show business, period, because of how much you and your wife cover and all of the work that you do. But let's talk a little bit about your Hollywood career. We're not just talking about Hercules, which we'll get to here in a second. We're talking Cheers, Murder, She Wrote, The Commish, shows that I remember. I may be showing my age right now.
Sure.
Andromeda.
I'm with you.
The OC. Mine and my children's one of our favorite episodes of Psych that you starred in. You've just had an amazing career. How'd you get involved in acting?
I was just a kid. I was 11 years old. I grew up just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, a little town called Mound, Minnesota. It's on the beautiful shores of Lake Minnetonka. My little town is 7,000 people. We were home to Tonka Toys, Lake Minnetonka. So there's a great trivia question right there. And we took a fifth grade field trip to the Guthrie Theater, very famous theater in Minneapolis. A lot of plays start there before going to Broadway. Probably one of the most famous ones was The Lion King, which is still 25, 30 years now it's been on Broadway. But I went and saw The Merchant of Venice at that Guthrie Theater. And I was only in fifth grade, 11 years old. I don't know what the heck they were saying because it was Shakespeare. But I was mesmerized. And I told my mom after it, I said, I'm going to be an actor. And that's kind of how the road started for me.
Yeah, you've got this really interesting career that we don't have time to go into, from going to Italy. And I think did you meet Versace while you were in Italy, and you did some modeling while you were there?
I did.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
so people
I was actually dating a girl who was a model when I was in college. And when I finished up, she said, come to Italy for one summer with me. And I thought, yeah, why not? And I 3 months turned into 3.5 years, and I had a blast. I lived in Paris, I lived in Munich, I lived in Milan, and I became very good friends with Gianni Versace, and he used me as his fit model for the spring collection of 1986. And it was pretty cool to sit there and do the things I got to do. I shot commercials in Egypt, Tunisia, Canary Islands. I mean, I got to travel. It was a wonderful sideways, because I was going to get to LA right away, and everything kind of got put on hold, but I have no regrets. It made me grow up quite a bit living in those countries and trying to learn the language and getting around. It was pretty fascinating time in my life.
How do you stay? So you're pretty conservative, even when you were younger, when you first voted. You're in a Democrat family, but you vote for Reagan. How do you maintain that in such a liberal surrounding?
Well, I suffer from truth and common sense. I can't help myself, So, we live in crazy times right now, because I think we got a lot of people on the conservative side that are pretty much the rhino category as well. Yeah. I dare to find one Democrat out there today that's as conservative as JFK was. And people look at me on the liberal side, JFK was great. And I go, yes, he was. Listen to his 1960 inauguration speech. There's nothing in there that any Democrat, most Republicans don't say today. He said, ask not what your country can give to you, but what you can do for your country. So it's simple like that. Everybody else wants hands out nowadays. And government today wants full control of everybody's lives from cradle to grave. The government today it's bigger and bigger. This country was founded on individuals. It was not founded on government. It was founded by our founding fathers that wanted the individuals to run the country and have the representatives be representative to them. We don't have that anymore. And everything we have going right now in our government is the same thing that started our Revolutionary War back against the monarchy of the Brits. Because we had all this stuff going on with taxes and everything, taxation, representation. We still have that today, because all the government does is find more ways to take your money. If people sat down and think about it, you got to work about 7 months a year just to pay the government. They'll let you keep the other 5 months of your hard work. It's pretty pathetic where we are right now, and people just give up and let the government take advantage of you.
Well, we're really
I
seeing,
don't. I fight back.
We're seeing and you have the best Twitter account of anybody on the planet. Everybody needs to follow you. We'll put the link in the description. You're always dropping bombs over there, but they're truth. And what the setup, what we're seeing in the government today is really interesting as far as the movie that you're putting out. Left Behind is being revived. The Rise of the Antichrist by you. What made you get involved with this project?
Well, I read the books, obviously, when I was younger. Loved the books. My first really connection with Jerry Jenkins was actually I did a movie with Dallas Jenkins, who's his son. And Dallas right now is kicking it pretty good with The Chosen. But Dallas and I did a movie back in 2010 along with John Ratzenberger and Christy Swanson. And it's called What If? And it's the same writers that did God's Not Dead. We shot it a couple years before God's Not Dead. In my book, it's a better movie than God's Not Dead. But the trouble with independent movies is we don't have the budget like that James Cameron does. He's got $300 million to throw at Avatar and another $100 million to promote it. We got to do what we can and get strong word of mouth. And that's why, hopefully, talking to you, we get some people to get their butts into the theaters when this movie opens January 26th. But when my movie God's Not Dead came out, it came out the same time that the last Left Behind movie came out, starring Nicolas Cage. I took over that role that he had, the Rayford Steele role, the pilot role. And they got inundated. When I say they, the guys that own the rights to it, it's Cloud 10, Paul Alon and his company, and Jessica Parker. They got inundated with emails and letters saying, why didn't you have Kevin Sorbo in that role? Why Nicolas Cage? So they contacted me, and we kept in contact over the last 6-7 years. And finally, 2 years ago, they said, okay, we're ready to do this. Let's do it. So we shot it a year ago. I was fortunate enough to direct it. They love what they see even before it comes out. Now they're writing the sequel to this one, and I'll be directing and acting in that one later this year.
It's really exciting, especially when I saw the cast that is involved with this movie. You got
a good cast.
Neil McDonough, Corbin Burnson, your wife. You. What was it like? I'm sure you're on the set. Not everybody probably has the same eschatological persuasion or Christian point of view when you're shooting a movie like that. Behind the scenes, what were some of your favorite moments I'm sure it spurred lots of interesting conversations doing a movie like this.
Well, behind the scenes was interesting because, we book actors, the ones like Greg Perot. This is probably his biggest role to date. He's a very big up-and-comer, wonderful guy, class act. Sarah Fisher, who I worked with before, we did a sitcom, 8 episodes of a sitcom called The Potwins. We'll see what happens with that. But they're amazing. And everybody was just sort of in sync. And like Greg, who I'd mentioned, he read the books Left Behind growing up as well. He said he was just dying to play this part. And we picked him off simply his audition scene. So we didn't say you have to be a Christian, you have to be this, conservative to get these roles. We took who we thought were the best people. But it's interesting when I do these movies. And I'm not going to name names, but I mean, I've had people come up to me in almost every movie I've been doing over the last 10 years saying, hey, thanks for being a voice for us. And I said, well, why don't you be a voice for yourself? And they go, well, we don't want the same thing to happen to us that happened to you, because I got blacklisted from Hollywood. But you know what? I'm fine. I had 2 long-running series with Hercules and Andromeda. I probably did another 20 movies before Hollywood booted me out because they couldn't stand the fact that I speak the truth. And I just said, that's fine. God is going to open a different door for me, a different road for me to follow, and I've been doing it for the last 10 years, and I'm happy with the movies I'm doing. We're going to keep plugging along. I got 2 other ones done in the can. One is the Reagan movie with Dennis Quaid. I played a pastor in that movie. That's out later this spring. I got another one I directed called Miracle in East Texas. That's another wonderful true story set in 1930 about the largest oil fund in the history of the world, written by an Oscar-nominated writer, Dan Gordon, who's fantastic. And that one's coming out probably late spring, early summer. I hope people check that one out, too. It's a true story. It's a pretty amazing movie.
I want to ask you about something pretty dramatic that happened in your life. But first, if people do want to connect with these, you have your own production company. How can people connect with you and with the work that you're doing and support it? Because it's so important.
The best place to go to sorbostudios.com. So sorbostudios.com. I get script submissions all the time. I'm telling people right now, I've read over 1,000 scripts. I got it narrowed down to a dozen that I want to do right now. I'm trying to raise money for. So if you're a funder, we can talk. I do wonderful movies that are, in the $3 million range, that's catering budget and Pirates of the Caribbean, by the way. But we do movies that look great and I call them actors movies with good messages about hope and love and faith and redemption and laughter, things that Hollywood won't do anymore. They got their agenda and they're shoving it down our throat, and we're just trying to do positive. So sorbostudios.com is a great place to go.
Well, God's Not Dead made, 70 times what you guys put in?
70 times. It was a $2 million budget, made over $140 million worldwide. Crazy. I wish I owned that movie.
Hungry
I did
for
not.
it. Yeah, but we're hungry for this kind of positive content. But you had to come up against it to get to where you are right now. I think the movie that we were about to see, Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist, is the culmination of your faith journey. In that you not only came against the cultural war in Hollywood. Around about, I don't know, the fifth season or fifth year of Hercules, you started having tingling in your hand. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened there?
Yeah, I was doing most of my own stunts because the ego said I was. I was a jock playing football and basketball all my years in school, and I just loved doing most of my own stunts. It was just fun, and I was always getting bumps and bruises and sprains and cuts and all kinds of stuff. And I didn't really pay that much attention to it until I got home to the States after the end of season 5, and I was doing publicity for my first big budget movie called Call the Conqueror. And I finally went to see my doctor. They found a lump way up here in my left subclavicle, and he said, I'm going to do a biopsy on that. Kind of freaked me out. But before the biopsy, I went to see my chiropractor. And I've been seeing this guy 8 years. He's never cracked my neck. I hate my neck cracked. Do not crack my neck. A voice in my head said, don't let him crack your neck, over and over again, which was really weird because he never cracks my neck. Well, boom, he cracked my neck. I suffered 3 strokes. That ended up being an aneurysm right up here that feeds into the artery, into the main artery in the arm, but also coming from the brain. And they call it retrograde blood flow, where blood can temporarily flow back the opposite way for a second. So that crack forced 3 clots into my brain. I suffered 3 strokes. I still had 10% loss of vision in both eyes. I spent 4 months learning how to walk and balance again, and I spent the next 3 years just pushing myself to get better and better. And it took a long time. Not 100%, but most people wouldn't be able to tell what happened to me, but it certainly put me on a different road than I am now. And I wrote a book. It's called True Strength, My Journey from Hercules to Mere Mortal and How Nearly Dying Saved My Life. And I hope people check it out. It opened up a door for me I never thought I'd be doing, which is public speaking. Initially, it was like speaking only to doctors and nurses in the medical field, but then people reading the book find out, oh, he's a Christian. Oh, he's pro-life. Oh, he's this. So most of my speaking now is pro-life and Christian education. And it's been a blessing. I do about 15 of these a year across the country. It's just, like I said, a little side job that I never thought I'd be doing in my life, but it's been an amazing message for me to get out to people and let people know there are roadblocks in life. God never promised us an easy life. What do you do when you hit those roadblocks? You can blame God, family, friends, the world. You got to look in the mirror because that's where it starts. Every time I went down, my wife said, you know what, Kevin? It happened. What are you going to do about it? And those were very strong words for me.
Well, we'll put the link for that book in the description because truly your story is powerful. And thank you for being an example in front of us in this culture war that we've been fighting. And I know you've been fighting it for a long time. In 2010, you really decided to stand up and speak up. And now you're doing on a subject matter that's not really that popular. The rapture of the church seems to be out of fashion in the modern world.
Yeah.
And that message is so. Why now? Why do you want to do this movie now?
Well, I think the timing is perfect on it. You look at what's going on in the world, right? I mean, and like you just said, I know churches aren't even talking about it anymore.
Yeah.
And when I showed a movie, Miracle in East Texas, to a group of 450 pastors in Dallas-Fort Worth area. And afterwards, and I say this pretty much every speech I do, because there's always somebody that's a religious leader in the crowds that I talk to. And I say, you guys got to remember, you work for God, not for government. And unfortunately, so many churches right now are becoming woke as well.
Yeah.
And they're following the culture, worried, I don't want to offend anybody in my audience. Well, my pastor that I still follow, I was 10 years at my church in Thousand Oaks, but I live in Florida now. I've been here 4 years. Thousand Oaks, California. We still watch him live stream here in the house with my kids and my wife. And he said years ago, which always stuck with me, he says, I'm not afraid to work my congregation down to a manageable size. I love that. And what has happened with him being so truthful and honest, he's actually grown his congregation. People need to wake up, and pastors need to start working together because churches are not working together. And guys, it's the same God. Start working together. Get past your egos and get past your fear and your insecurities, and get yourself out there and just be honest with everybody instead of worried about, the government's going to come after me. Who cares? Let them come after you. We got to fight back, guys, because they're going to keep taking things away from us.
Well, God told Gideon, you've got too many. And if we can get it down to a solid remnant who are willing to work together, we might be able to have an impact on this culture. And you have had an impact on this culture. So when we have the next generation coming up who have a passion for media, regardless of what kind of media it is, should they attempt to go into these cancel culture companies, or should they wade out into the unknown and start their own works or work with companies like yours?
I say work your own. Work your own. Don't go. You know what? The only good thing, if you got the stomach to do it, then I say go into the cancel culture world, because the reality is it is starting to fire back on them. Look what's going on with Netflix. Look what's going on with Disney. Their stocks have plummeted. people have pulled out of their subscriptions because people are sick of what's being forced down our throats. Because who runs the culture? Hollywood does. It's all downstream from politics. And Hollywood and the mainstream media have full influence on what the people in D.C. are doing. But we got to fight back and get rid of people that don't belong in D.C., which are plenty of them. And our voting needs to be honest, and we need to have honest votes in this country. Because
look at what's happening right now in the House. Look at what's happening in the House.
Look what's happening on the border.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the border, we're just letting people fly. I mean, Biden has let more people in across the border in 2 years than Trump did in 4 years. Like 3 times as many people in 4 years. I mean, it's crazy what's going on. And for them to sit there and lie to the public and say, oh, the border's under control. I know people who are down there. I've seen the photos. My wife went down there to help a woman shooting a documentary. It's totally out of control. But it's just, all they want is more and more people to come in here because they want more control over our lives. They want to destroy people in this country, and they just want the elites to cover everything, control everything.
So when we talk about Hollywood then and what they're pushing out and how they influence culture, what are we talking about? Are we talking about executives? Are we talking about producers, actors, or this culture around this bubble that they live in?
Well, I think they do live in a bubble. I think it's ultimately the A-list superstar actors, the people in power at the studios. They're the ones who make it all happen. There's so many more people out there in Hollywood that think the way I do, but they are scared to death. Fear is government's favorite weapon. Fear is a wonderful weapon to use against people. And too many people fall into that. The only person you're supposed to fear is God. It's in the Bible. Other than that, you got to fight back. We need to wake up the lions because the sheep are going to be sheep. And they're going to be difficult to get them to move away and stop being zombies. We need to wake up the lions not to be afraid. And we got to march down that road less traveled right along with Jesus and make the road less traveled a superhighway. That's what I say.
Are you seeing this happening? Because when I look at Hollywood, I see you and Dean Cain, which interestingly enough, you guys auditioned for the same role. Is that right? Tell me, real quick, tell us about that real fast.
Well, I actually got the role. I got on the last 2 guys for Lois and Clark. We did our screen test with Terry Hatcher. I got a call that night saying I got the role. 24 hours later, they said, we changed our mind. We're going Dean Cain. So this is the ultimate high and low of the frustration of Hollywood because you have so many things not in your control. You need luck, you need talent, you need timing, you need all these kind of things. And I'm not a Hollywood guy, so I don't kiss butt in Hollywood at all. So I think that's another reason why they started rejecting me.
How interesting is that you and Dean Cain are 2 conservative voices now, nearly 3 decades later.
Yeah, he's a good man. He's been a good friend since those years. We've done a couple movies together. We shot another one last year. I've got one I'm trying to raise money for right now. It's a faith-based movie with Dean, so we're hoping to get that off the ground. And you mentioned Neil McDonough. Neil and I got a Western that's a modern-day Cain and Abel. And people say modern day, and I go, the 1850s is modern day compared to the timeline of Cain and Abel.
Yeah, he's outstanding. He is amazing.
Yeah,
such a great character actor. But so tell us now, how can people connect with Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist? When's it coming out? How do they connect with it?
January 26th. Go to leftbehindmovie.com. It's pretty simple. Leftbehindmovie.com. You can see the trailer. Plug in your zip code, and it'll show you what theaters are near you. That's the best place to go. And also go to sorbostudios.com. And one more quick plug. Get ready to write this one down. We have 8 spots left open on a trip to Israel that my wife and I are hosting in May. And it's called sorboisraeltrip.com. sorboisraeltrip.com. This is a chance of a lifetime. It's a bucket list trip to walk in the footsteps of Jesus because Israel is fascinating. I've been there a few times already.
Well, the best thing you can do for Israel is go there because it's going to transform your life. It's going to change your life. And real quick, there's other things you do as far as homeschooling. What are some other projects that you and your wife are both working on?
Well, we both do a lot of speaking events. My wife is obviously, she speaks across the country in homeschooling. She's got a number of books out there. Once again, you go to sorbostudios.com. Both of our websites are together. We just did a follow-up book to True Strength called True Faith, Embracing Adversity and God's Light. And, it's just she's writing another book right now. And we've got, like I said, more speaking events set up. It's just a great place to go. I got the Reagan movie coming out this year with Dennis Quaid. That's done in the can. That'll be out late spring. The other movie, Miracle in East Texas, I directed. I've got 5 other movies I shot just in the last 9 months that will be out late this year or early next year. Wow. And I've got 5 movies booked already for this year. So
the hardest working man, not just in show business, period. And I think Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist is one of the greatest evangelistic opportunities you have. We're going to pack out a theater. Thanks. We encourage everyone else to pack out theaters, and the link is in the description. Kevin Sorbo, we can't thank you enough for being with us on Encounter today.
God bless you guys, and Happy New Year.
God bless. Happy New Year. You need a word from heaven. As we head into 2023, you can hear it being spoken across all streams, the power and the significance behind the number 23. Well, on February the 3rd, that's 2323, we are having a prophetic gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina with the amazing best-selling author and prophetic voice, Chad Norris from the Garden Greenville. This is going to be a powerful time in the Lord that I believe is essential for tearing open the heavens over your life and releasing the breakthrough that you need. So I want you to go to encountertoday.com to get more information about our amazing prophetic gathering with Chad Norris on 2323. We'll see you there.